This is Retirement Roadmap Radio with Mark Fricks from Master Plan Retirement Consultants. Listen in as we address your financial concerns and provide helpful solutions to put you on the path to achieving your retirement goals. And now, here is Retirement Roadmap Radio with your host, Mark Fricks.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Retirement Roadmap Radio with me, Mark Fricks, your host. And joining us here shortly will be our co-host, Mr. Tony Shore, and we have a great show ahead for you. And, you know, one day I'm going to come out and say, we really have a terrible show, and so you should just turn your radio off now. But they're always great shows, don't you think, Tony?
Oh, yeah. The shows are fantastic. I love them. And so they go very well. I always learn something from you, which is key,
good.
Right? I mean, that's what this is all about, education, right?
It is, and I learn something from you every week, and usually it's like things like, don't always listen to what Tony says. That's
usually
what
it's some kind of a tip about pizza.
Oh, yeah, those are good tips, though. Those are good tips.
Usually it's something to do with pizza. I don't know why.
We should start a second show and all about food.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm willing, as long as it's about pizza. Okay, so finances. I mean, Mark, come on. Right now, what's happening out there is crazy. I mean, markets, inflation, interest rates, supply chain issues. So where are we headed in the financial world on today's show?
Well, let's talk about that first. You know, first of all, we know that these times are coming. They always do come. You know, look at the history of the stock market. We have a bear market every 5 years. A bear market is a 20% or more drop. So if you don't plan for it, you're going to get blindsided. We plan for it. We have mechanisms in place that protect some of our money. We have some accounts that grow when the market shrinks. And, you know, our clients are typically not down at all. Or down less than 5% overall. And so, you know, that's because we work with people 55 and older, we have to plan that way. Well, they can't afford a 25-30% drop, or they'd be going back to work. And that's not in the forecast for most of our clients. So it's funny. I had a meeting yesterday with a young lady. And most people that work with us are 50 and older, but she was in her 40s and wanted to get a head start. But she was talking about the market. She's like, I don't care. I'm putting money in. I'm buying low. I'm good, and all that kind of good stuff.
Wow.
And she also said she listens to our show every week.
Every week? Wow,
yes,
I'm excited. That's great.
So she's a great young lady and entrepreneur and really ahead of things. I think she told me more than I could tell her. So she's educated herself, so it's really good. So anyway, so let's get into today's show. And again, you know, the markets are all over the place, but, you know, we've enjoyed several good years. We got to take the brunt of this. It will turn around. The market's not going to zero. Don't take money out. Don't move to cash. You're already down 20%. Don't start moving to cash. Leave it alone. Call me. I'll talk you off the ledge. But anyway, so today we're going to talk about reasons why you may not be ready to retire. And I think these are really good things to consider. You know, we have a lot of people, Tony, that are coming to us because of vaccine mandates, because of aging parents, because of whatever. They're just tired of working. They're saying, can I retire? And so there are reasons why they may not be ready. So we're going to cover those today, and you judge where you're at, and you listeners, and decide, hey, maybe I'm not ready, or maybe I need to talk to Mark and see how I can get ready. And so that would be a great conversation to have, and I will be glad to have that with anyone listening today. So,
Excellent.
Ready to get started?
I am so ready. So what's the first thing we're talking about, Mark?
Well,
where are we starting?
Yeah, so I think if you're struggling to pay current bills, you really don't want to look at retiring. If you're working paycheck to paycheck, you know, the general rule, I hate general rules, but I'm going to use it anyway, is that you will typically live on about 75% of your income in retirement. So if you're making $100,000 a year, you should be able to live on about $75,000 a year. I don't use that with my clients, but it's a good jumping off point.
It's a general rule of thumb.
It's the publication number. But, you know, there are some things that will decrease, you know, maybe commuting costs, maybe dry cleaning or new clothes to go to work in, or whatever. Sure. But guess what? Some things go up. Like you want to travel maybe. You want better entertainment. You want to go to the theater more often. You want to whatever. And so there's kind of a balance. And by the way, one thing that you may not be taking into consideration is healthcare expenses. People think, hey, I'm going on Medicare, everything will be rosy. Well, Medicare is not free. Part A is paid for, but Part B has gone up to $170 a month per person.
Yeah, there's premiums and deductibles with Medicare, absolutely. And it doesn't cover everything. So you're going to need some supplemental type insurance or that. It doesn't include hearing, vision, or dental, which are three things as we get older we all need. So why doesn't Medicare cover it? I could go off on that because it frustrates me. It's like the three things seniors need the most. We're not going to cover that with Medicare. It's frustrating, but people don't understand that. I think you're right. A lot of people have misconceptions about, hey, Medicare is going to take care of me once I turn 65. Right. No, you have considerable health care costs in retirement.
Yep. And it doesn't cover long-term care. And so
the biggie,
that's
of course,
the biggie.
Is long-term care. And we've done entire shows on that, and we will in the future as well.
Yep, absolutely. So again, if you're struggling to pay your bills now, it's not going to get better because you're not working. So be careful with that. Get things under control. And the way you do that is point number 2. If you have a high level of debt, it's probably not a good time to retire yet. You need to get that handled. If you've got credit cards and 2 car payments, I'm not too concerned about a house payment, especially if you've got a 2 or 3% mortgage. That's almost free money. But when it comes to having 3 or 4 credit cards and a loan at the bank and 2 car loans and maybe a school loan still, so many people I'm talking to in their 50s and 60s still have a student loan hanging out there. And so you need to, and we help people with that. We have debt acceleration programs that we can put them into that will tell them the exact best way to pay off and in what order to pay off their debt. And so if you've got a lot of debt, you might want to delay retirement a little bit.
So debt and is struggling to, pay your bills and debt, those are 2 main reasons that you may not be ready to record. What's another big sign that we might not be not ready to record, ready to retire? I've got recording on the brain. And we're talking about retirement. So
maybe we're not ready to record.
Maybe I'm
start over.
Maybe I am ready to retire. That's the problem. But what else do we need to make sure happens? How can we be ready to retire? Or what's a sign we're not?
Yes. So a sign that we may not be ready is no plan for future major expenses. So let's say that your house needs a new roof, the basement's leaking, the driveway's crumbling. You might want to handle those things before you retire because these, the number one phone call I get from my clients is, this is going on with the house. I need X number of dollars. It's always about the house. I need $20,000 for a roof. I need $7,000 for a new driveway. Our
they're
cars,
money pits.
They really are. And then on top of that would be a car. The car is on the last leg and things like that. So try to start taking care of these things while you're working. Because you don't want to get 2 years into retirement and suddenly the kitchen needs redoing because it's 30 years old and the bathroom floor is sinking and whatever. Sometimes I tell people, I said, I've never done the math. I'm going to do the math one day, but I want to know if we really do make money on houses. I know the value increases, but then you subtract what you spend. And you subtract the interest, and you subtract taxes, and you all that other stuff. I'm not really sure if we make money on houses or not. So I would
say the majority of the people out there probably do not.
And then if they refinance every 5 years and pull money out and renew their closing cost and all that, I don't know. It depends on where you're at. Now, right now, probably people are making money in their houses, but that's a short-term problem we're having right now with prices of homes going up.
Well, if you sell your home, you could make you probably end up on the positive side, but then you have to live somewhere and buy another one. And so, if you sell your house in an up market, sure, you're going to make a lot of money, but you're also going to have to spend that or more to get into another house.
Unless you rent.
Unless you rent. Yeah. And then, of course, that money goes out the window each month, but in some cases, it might be better because if you do the math, it might make makes sense.
Again, you're not having to replace that water heater. Water heater goes out, you call the landlord, or whatever. So I'm not saying it's right for everybody. These new senior citizen complexes, or really could be a good idea. So there's other opportunities.
Sure.
I'm not telling people what to do. I'm just simply saying, plan the fact that what kind of work needs to be done over the next 5 years to your house, your barn, your a car being replaced or whatever, because that's you start doing that, and as we know, Tony, from past conversations, most people's money is in IRA 401k type holdings. So if you take out $50,000, you really got to take out 65 or 70 to pay taxes. So it's costing you even more to repair what what he's repairing. So be careful with that. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. So I think this is a great conversation, but really for people to make sure they are able to retire, they need a solid plan in place, a written plan, and you have to work with a financial services professional, someone who's independent, who's going to be able to look at all the options and do what's in your best interest, a fiduciary. So, Mark, how can our listeners get a hold of you?
Well, a couple of easy ways. Number one, I love sending people to the website, because not only can they find out more about us, but also we have classes listed, many of them virtual, so you can join in on a Social Security class, a tax planning class, Medicare classes, estate planning classes, but also because right on the very front page is a little green button that says schedule an appointment. You press that button, my personal calendar pops up, and you can pick and choose from any openings for a 30, 45-minute chat. It can be face-to-face. It can be via Zoom. It can be by telephone, just to talk about some of these points we've raised and other points we've raised, and to see where you're at. We could even run some reports. This is all complimentary. Run reports that tell you if you are ready, what lies ahead, how do we prepare, what do we need to knock off the list to make sure you can retire. That website is masterplanretire.com. Or give us a call at 770-980-9262. But again, the website's a great way to contact us and schedule your appointment. And again, it's masterplanretire.com.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's great. And listeners, pick up the phone, give Mark a call, a no-cost consultation. All it costs you is your time, and you can ask questions, get some reports run. That is huge. Now, today we're talking about the top reasons why someone might not be ready to retire. Right. And I think knowing these things can help us as we prepare for retirement. I mean, we're all either one of two places. We're either in retirement already or we're headed there.
Right.
And either way, these are things that need to be addressed. Some people find themselves in retirement by choice, or maybe forced there because they had to retire, and maybe they don't have all these I's dotted and T's crossed. And so it's good to know, hey, I need to be in a good situation, especially to be prepared for retirement. You've already covered things like healthcare costs, which is huge, obviously. And we've talked about debt. That's a big one. People don't have to have all their debt paid off to retire, but credit card debt, high interest debt, definitely want that taken care of. Try to get rid of car notes, those types of things you mentioned. So what's next? What else do you want to talk about here today?
Well, I think the next one is, if you don't truly understand your Social Security benefit and when to turn it on and how to turn it on, you don't want to just jump into retirement. I have so many people. I had another appointment yesterday. This happens at least twice a week with people that are speaking to me maybe for the first time. And I'll ask them, when do you think about retiring? And I get this answer so often, 66 and 8 months. I'm like, what's 66 and 8 months got to do with retirement? Well, that's when my full retirement age is. According to who? According to Social Security. That number has nothing to do with when you want to retire.
Yeah.
When do you want to retire? Forget the Social Security. You can turn that on any month between age 62 and 70. We'll determine that later. Don't worry about the 66 and 8 months or 66 and 10 months. That is a moot point. Let's look at your situation.
At least initially. Yeah.
Absolutely. Then we'll decide when to turn it on. Maybe we won't turn it on until 70 because it'll be another 16% larger or 32% larger or whatever. Maybe we'll turn it on earlier. I don't know. But don't let that determine your there's more important things that determine that, as opposed to the website that says your full retirement age is 66. Because as we know, Tony, we talked about this.
Yeah, we do.
We've talked about this before, and the fact that number, all it means is when the Social Security does all of their calculations, is that's the full amount you get. If you take it earlier, you get less. You take it later, you get more. That's all that date is. It's a calculation date.
Yeah.
So don't let that drive your retirement date.
Right. Yeah, there's two things I think people use when they say, when should I retire? My full retirement age, or FRA, according to the Social Security Administration, or 65, because that's when I can collect Medicare. And both of those things factor in.
Sure.
But you don't have to use those as dates. I mean, you need to figure out, healthcare, your health insurance costs might play a part into when you retire, and you might need to wait until you can get Medicare. Right. You might need to wait until you can draw your Social Security. But with Social Security, it is a foundational piece of retirement planning. Right. You've told us that on past shows. We've talked a lot about it. Right. But you have a Social Security maximization report that you can run for people that'll show them when the sweet spot is for them to retire, maybe that, or for them to collect Social Security, not retire. Those are two different things, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Right.
And that continues to be a point of confusion for many, many people. So, yeah. So the next one I've got here is really, it might be one of the most important ones. If you don't have a monthly income plan. Now, I know people in their minds, they think, okay, this is coming in and this is coming in and this is going out, so I think I'll be okay. I don't want to think I'm going to be okay. I want to know I'm going to be okay.
You should never leave your income planning to chance in retirement.
And so many people do, and even the ones that maybe create a spreadsheet, they leave out things like the health care we've already talked about. They leave out inflation. How can you leave out inflation? There's so many, and then how do you plug those gaps? You certainly don't want to plug it with a stock market account that can lose 30% in 1 year, and you're taking out $3,000 a month. You're going to run out of money much quicker.
We've seen that happen this year with the stock market.
Absolutely.
So the proof is in the pudding that you definitely need a plan in place. And where are you going to get that income from, and when are you going to need it?
Yep, and we have one of the long discussions we have is what they think they're going to need in retirement. That's a hard number to come up with, but with my help and with my experience, I'm able to I even have a budget sheet I can send them. It's called a post-retirement budget sheet, and it's what will you be spending? Okay, we won't spend this anymore, but we will be spending that, or whatever, just to help get a hold of what we might need. Therefore, now how do we plug that gap? And that's probably the most important thing we do. I start with the income plan, and then I start plugging in what it's going to take to make that plan work. So very important that you have an income plan. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it sounds like you tie that income plan into a spending plan. So
Absolutely.
You have them fill out that worksheet to see what they're spending. And I know my situation, we all like to think we're going to spend less in retirement, and some of us might be forced to. But I know that when I spend more, what day of the week do I spend the most right now as far as spending money? The weekends, Saturday and Sunday.
When you have free time. When you have free time. That's right.
I spend Saturday is when people typically spend the most money because they're at work all week, right?
Yep.
Well, guess what? Evenings and weekends are when we spend money now. Guess what? During retirement, every day, all day is an evening or a weekend.
That's right. Every day is a Saturday.
Every day is a Saturday.
That's right.
So I'm just worried about how much money. Boy, if I don't think I can keep up my Saturday spending trend when I'm retired, because that's every day.
Yeah, you're right. It's really interesting when we get into these discussions. And again, after working with over 300 or 400 people in developing this, I mean, I've seen everything. And some people come in and say, we want more income than we've lived on the last, so we'll work that out. And if they've got the assets to do that, yeah, we can make it work. But it's
some
different
people
for everybody.
don't want a pay cut in retirement.
Nope. They'll make that very clear, too. So,
Yep.
So the next one is no long-term financial plan. And what I mean by that is when we develop that income plan, the next step is how are we going to make that money last forever? How are we going to make that money last until the day of I like to call it the COD, which is the checkout date. Right.
Yep.
So what's your checkout date? And we even talk about that, their longevity, their health, their family health, things like that. But we need to take that income plan and other assets that they have and work out a way. And then we throw curveballs at it. What's a curveball? Well, what if inflation increases long term? What if we have more bear markets than we anticipate? What if they have a long-term care situation or have to spend a lot more money on health care? Or what if one of them passes away early? Now we've lost some income.
A black swan event like COVID or passing away. These are black swan events where these are unexpected things that you typically don't, no one planned for COVID-19, but it happened.
Yep. And so we build that into the plan so that we know. That's why I don't get too many phone calls when the market's down, because my clients know we have a plan to maneuver through the bear market. No, we may not be making as much money as we made last year, but we're not losing as much money as the average person on the street. We're maintaining, and that's so important when you're retired. Most of my clients don't want to go back to work,
Right.
They're enjoying their free time, so that's important to have that kind of plan.
It is. And then another aspect I think you look at, and you alluded to it there, that's your time horizon, like when you're going to pass away, longevity or time horizons. People have different time horizons for when they will need the money. And you've told us before on previous shows, Mark, when you need your money is almost more important than how much you have, because when you need it makes a huge difference in retirement. If there's certain monies you need in 3 years, like in 3 years, I'm going to need this much money to help send my grandkids to college. Well, where do you want to put that money? Do you you don't want that tied up long term. You want to, and you don't want to risk having a down market with that money. So that's more short-term money. But yet you have a set time when you need it. So time horizons are obviously important too, right?
Yep, exactly. It really is, and we build that in. Again, we want to know short-term goals. One of the first forms people fill out when they're meeting with us is their goal sheet, their financial goal sheet. What are the goals over the next 2 to 5 years? What are the concerns next 2 and 5 years? What are the goals and concerns for 5 to 10 years, so forth and so on? And so we can understand what's coming up. So a lot of investigation. We're not like one of these typical firms, these big box firms. You walk in, the first thing you want to do is see your statements and invest your money. That's not a plan. That's called investing, and it has no goal in mind. So we want all of that built in first before we start moving money around and developing income plans.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's huge. Well, we have a couple of minutes left. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention here?
A couple of quick ones. Number one, I kind of touched on this earlier, but not accounting for inflation. If inflation is only 3%, prices will double in 25 years. If it's 5%, it will double. What's 5 into 72? 15?
I was told there would be no math.
It's going to double in 15 years. So if you retire at 62, by 77, prices will be double. So we've got to pay attention to inflation. So that's important. And I think a big one I want to make sure we get in here is that you're worried about retirement. If you're worried about it, you're not going to be mentally ready to retire. So you know what takes away that worry? Having a plan. And that's what we do, is we have a plan.
Yep.
And we see it's going to work.
And a written plan. Well, we're almost out of time, Mark, so I want to work in before we go. Let our listeners know you have a special offer for our listeners so they can get their own plan in place so they don't have to worry.
Yeah, it starts with just a chat. What is bothering you? What do you think could go wrong? What are your concerns? What have you done so far? And that's our initial chat. It's just about you and your dreams and goals and desires and how we can get there. And then, depending on how that chat goes, we'll run 6, 7, 8, 9 reports to see where you are. And so we basically have reserved 5 appointment slots for 5 listeners, the first 5 that contact us. If you contact us over the weekend, leave a message. And the first 5 we have spots for. It's complimentary. I'll even send you a copy of my book. It's actually under revision now, Tony. Finally got it under revision, so this is going to be newer, greater, and all that kind of good stuff. But this book is really a good book. It kind of talks about all the things that we talk about on the show. And so make sure you take advantage of that. Again, the best way is either go to the website, masterplanretire.com, and go to the little button that says schedule an appointment, and that will get you on my calendar, or give us an old-fashioned phone call, 770-980-9262. And Tony, I got to mention this. We just entered our 20th state. We have clients in 20 states now. And so we can work with anybody. I've got them in California. I've got some in Washington State, all the way up north, Minnesota, Michigan, all, of course, into Florida, Texas. And so there is no boundaries. So if you're listening to this on a podcast and you go, hey, this guy's in Atlanta, how can I work with him? We work every day with people all over the country. So don't let that stop you.
All right. Well, great show today. That does it for today's episode of Retirement Roadmap Radio with our host, Mark Fricks.
And we're so glad you joined us. We hope you enjoyed the show and got some good information out of it. Remember to visit the podcast. You probably have over 100 of our shows in your pocket right now in your cell phone. So visit some of the major podcast sites or apps. Or go to the website. Our podcasts are there. We have a YouTube channel, the whole bit. It's all about education first. But in the meantime, until we see or meet you again, don't forget, plan well and prosper. Have a great day, everybody.